We're going to convene this November 3rd, 2022 meeting of the Centreville Town Council. We'll begin with a Pledge of Allegiance, and if folks could remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Council has the minutes from October 20th in their packet. Is there a motion to adopt or any changes that folks would like to make?
Motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This is a closed session announcement regarding Town Council closed session November 3rd, 2022. The Town Council met in closed session on Thursday, November 3rd, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. at the Liberty Building, 107 North Liberty Street, second floor meeting room, to discuss personnel in accordance with the Maryland Open Meetings Act. 5 members of the Town Council voted to close the session. The authority to close the session is found in Section 3-305 of the General Provisions article. Town Council discussed the following topics. We discussed the recommendation from the Personnel Review Board. We also discussed the application for a board or commission. No actions were taken. The following members and staff were present: Stephen K. Klein, President; Ashley H. Kaiser, Vice President; Eric Johnson, Jr., Daniel B. Worth, and Jim A. Beecham, members; Sharon Van Emberg, Town Attorney; Crystal Ebal, Human Resources Manager; and Carolyn Brinkley, Town Clerk. The meeting adjourned at 6:56 p.m. We'll now move into a citizens forum. We're going to open comments back up like a regular public comment period for Carter Farm. So if you have comments outside of Carter Farm, we'll have a citizens forum now. Do you want to read the citizens forum statement, Carolyn?
Welcome to this meeting of the Centreville Town Council. This is a public meeting and we welcome your participation. By attending, you acknowledge that this session is recorded and aired live on QAC-TV 7. During the meeting, we ask that you turn your cell phones off and hold personal conversations outside the meeting room. The scheduled agenda is available on the information table just outside. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes per person. The Town Council respects and appreciates your desire and right to convey your message freely, and in keeping with the dignity of proceedings, we ask that all views be expressed in a respectful and civil manner. Comments longer than 3 minutes should be submitted in writing. If questions are a part of your comments, we'll refer those to the appropriate individual. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody signed up?
Double check.
Would anybody like to provide public comment? All right, nobody's signed up.
I have a question. You're going to allow public comment to occur?
Yeah, we'll open it back up, yeah. All right, we'll do a little early maybe, but we'll, so last 2 weeks ago, we had the formal public hearing on Carter Farm. There was a motion passed unanimously to keep the record open for 2 weeks. That's today for Carter Farm growth allocation, ordinance 9-2022. So we'll kind of reopen that public comment period. So we can do those that are supportive of the project, opposed to the project. We'll do those that are supportive of the project first. Come on up, state your name and where you live, and let us know what you think.
Hi, my name is Sandy Huffer. My home is at 200 Corsica Street down there, the creek. I'm supportive of this. Can you hear me fine? Sorry. I'm sort of supportive of Carter Farm. A couple points. Includes 126 residential units. That is much less than a prior development that was asked to be done at this location several, probably 5+ years ago. So it's much less, has a mixed use, types, sizes, and price points. The design of the architecture will complement Carter Farmhouse and the agricultural history. The homes will be a sustainable design, which reduce energy consumption and minimize the impact of the town, water, treatment system, which is really important, as I know right now at this time. Very important. The developer, I am interested in this community and buying a home. I should mention that a little earlier. The developer, Ernie Soda, he has very deep experience with agri-hoods, which is what this is, and is committed to sensitive design and green building principles. Ernie and his company have won numerous green building awards for very innovative projects that he's done across the country. There's open space of 20 acres and minimizes impervious spaces, which is very important due to this community being close to the water. And it also has rain gardens and with native plants and absorbs rainwater and creates wildlife habitat. Again, very critical. The restoration of the critical buff area habitats will improve the water quality of the river and improve the public access. It will also include a public access trail for the community. Provides a working farm that preserves the agricultural heritage of the property and also benefits the entire community, not just that community and that land that's being developed. Has a small, very small scale commercial component that will be food centric and provide services to the community, such as perhaps a farm-to-table restaurant, and will complement but not compete with businesses in the town. It preserves Carter Farmhouse, which is a historic landmark on Chesterfield neighborhood. It's very important to the Chesterfield neighborhood as well as for me, because I have history in this town. I grew up in this town. I went to elementary school, high school. I was one of those kids that swam in the pool at that house. But the one thing that I'm concerned to me is that this house will not be there much longer if things don't move forward. It's been sitting there a while, dormant, and it's becoming more and more as far as having a problem. Whenever you have a house, it just sits there. So I'm concerned relating to how much longer that house will be there if we really truly want to preserve this house. And the economics benefits to the town with the construction, the farm area, the commercial space, and the ongoing spending of the 126 new houses that we've done in a really beautiful landscape and really thoughtful. So I know this takes a lot of time to think about, and I very much respect your time to think about this community. It's very important to the town, and as far as the land that's in this town that can be developed within the town limits. But I'm very supportive of it. I think it's a really special project. I think it has a lot of positive aspects to bring to our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else supportive of the project that would like to speak? By all means.
Thank you. I'm Rob Etkin. I'm with the project team, but I've been involved with Carter Farm for probably 25 years through a close relationship with Judge Carter over the years and through a variety of other members of his family. But it's a wonderful farm. I've been volunteering with the farm for a while, and more recently they brought me on board to help develop the farm. So tonight I came here to answer some questions. If I can be helpful at all, please let me know. And I am 100% supportive. I'm not a voter in Centreville. I live in Queenstown, but nearby neighbor. I think it's a great project, and I hope the town sees fit to let them in at some point. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else supportive of the project that wants to speak? We'll move into those that are opposed to the project. If you'd like to come up to the mic, feel free.
Thank you, Council. I'm Tim McCluskey. I live on Watson Road. One note regarding the last comment, or two comments ago. In the current growth ordinance, growth allocation ordinance, I don't believe that the Carter Farmhouse is going to be preserved. So that's not a requirement as far as I've read on your growth ordinance. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I believe the growth allocation ordinance for the Carter Farm should be rejected. Previously, I've testified that you should reject it because it would use up 100% of our remaining sewer capacity, and this is still true. Tonight, I wanted to talk about the unwillingness of the developer to improve public infrastructure for the good of the town that all other major subdivisions have had to do. It is standard practice among municipalities and counties across Maryland and the United States to require a developer to pay for improvements to the public infrastructure or pay the town cash in lieu of. In Centreville, every major subdivision over the past 25 years has been required to do this, except this proposal at Carter Farm. Why is that? Why are they unwilling to improve the public infrastructure for everyone? And why is the council unwilling to require it? Here are some examples of improvements or payments from recent developments. Willows at Centreville behind Acme. 2 parcels across from Little Hut from the development were donated to the town. One was sold to Queen Anne's County for the jail expansion, netting $160,000 for the town. The other is still owned by the town and is valued at $150,000. The town required at the developer's expense to install a water line from Little Hut to Heritage Way, thereby providing redundancy to our water distribution system. That cost over $200,000. So Willows at Centreville, 70 units, over $500,000. Providence Farm, Phase 4 and 5, the town required the developer to pay $2,500 per lot to the town for improvements to the town's water distribution system and public roads within the municipality. Previous phases in Providence Farm, the developer donated unsold lots to the town and a historic farmhouse to the Historic Trust. That was worth over, the lots were worth over $150,000. When the county annexed the land for the county building and the YMCA, the town required them to donate a 1-acre lot for a future water tower. This property is valued at over $200,000. Symphony Village and Northbrook, 25 years ago, both had to provide significant improvements to town infrastructure. For example, Northbrook had to build an arsenic treatment plant and a water tower. The developer has said they don't want to pay. Every other developer in town has said the same thing, and you know what? They all did. Centreville is a special place, and you should put a premium on all development here. Carter Farm is calling for 126 units. Why is the council not requiring the developer to do what every other subdivision over the past 25 years has had to do? In 2015, the last time that a development proposal on the Carter Farm got to this step, that value was $4,500 per unit. Mr. Beecham, you were on the council and required it then. I hope you would require it now. Why is the council leaving over $500,000 on the table that can be used to update infrastructure? Think of the recent sewer break behind Little Hut a couple of weeks ago, the ongoing I&I issues, or improving our sidewalks, trails, and park system. Every dollar that the developer pays to fund improvements is $1 that the current citizens don't have to pay, and it helps everyone in Centreville. Every previous council in the past 25 years have required this. There should be no exception at Carter Farm at this point. This unwillingness should cause you to reject this ordinance. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll follow Tim. My name's Tim O'Brien. My wife Joanne and I are new residents at 403 Chesterfield. We don't have the historical perspective that existing residents have, so we're going to offer 3 observations and a few questions that we trust the town is looking at. First, our first observation is, if we understand correctly, the proposed development would require the town to allocate almost all of the wastewater and water treatment capabilities that remain. So the first question is, is that realistic? And if that's realistic, what are the near and long-term risks to the town of committing such a large percentage of the remaining water and waste capacity to any single new development? Additionally, wouldn't it make more sense to preserve the existing wastewater and the waste and water capacity to allow additional, to allocate those resources to newer developments as those would arise? Second observation, I've reviewed the projects undertaken by Remake. They're very impressive. The benefits to be gained by other communities that they've developed in remaking those areas were typically impacted by natural disasters or the closures of a steel mill. Surely the appeal for those towns to approve those projects was that they solved a number of pressing local issues that were greatly challenging the quality of life in those communities. So that begs the question, what are the pressing local issues facing the residents of Centreville that will be solved by developing Carter Farm and adding 126 new residences and commercial buildings, commercial businesses? Excuse me. The last observation, ambitious developments like the proposed Carter Farm agri-hood always present risks that are either unforeseen or left undiagnosed, the unknowns, if you will. Because Remake's skillfully framed narrative directs the council's focus on the benefits of approving their proposal, I encourage council members to also uncover and examine the many unintended consequences and unexplored risks that also merit your close analysis. Among some of those that quickly come to mind, as you're likely aware, the traffic on Chesterfield Avenue for the elementary school drop-off and pickup is already extensive. I can only imagine what it's going to be like with 126 new residences. Are we prepared to potentially have to add a traffic light on Chesterfield Avenue to handle the extra congestion? Isn't it also likely that integrating commercial businesses as part of this development will further increase local traffic throughout the entire day, reduce the appeal of living in the historic section, and greatly change the quaint nature of our entire town? Finally, forecasts have been made to project the impact on student population. What happens if those forecasts are understated? Are parents prepared to send children to overcrowded schools? Our hope is that the council is considering these and other questions to more closely understand the many unintended consequences and risks. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Centreville.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Fred Bew. I live at 510 Chesterfield Avenue, the old wharf house across from docks. I'm going to be less on specifics, but I applaud everything that the first two speakers and agree with each of their statements. And I appreciate the research and the specificity of each of their comments. And I hope you all, take that into your account. We were approached and were privileged and pleased to host one of the neighborhood meetings that Eric reached out to us to have recently. We had 10 or 12 people there, and it was a late evening, about 4 hours from 7 to 11 that night. We thought someone who was a proponent of the project was going to be there. They were not. 100% of everyone else there are absolutely deeply opposed to the project. It's almost 100% of everyone, or it is 100% of everyone who I've spoken to who live on, this road, which is a historic thoroughfare and neighborhood. Everyone is opposed to it, and I hope we're all your constituents. And at every meeting for the last year and a half, almost 100%, and I appreciate and respect someone who's interested in maybe investing there, but almost 100% of everyone who comes to these meetings and speaks up are opposed to the project. And for all the fundamental reasons with sewage, water, and everything else, Eric was really diligent the other night. I think he had 36 questions. He may be presenting those tonight. And not just questions, but real legitimate concerns of people who have researched this, who live in the area, who live on the street, and don't want this project. It's not that we're opposed to development. We're open to it. We just think this is, not well thought out and not in the best interest of our community, and certainly not our neighborhood. And we've all invested in this neighborhood and want this to be our home, and is our home, and we take it very personally. And we just hope that you take that into consideration. So I appreciate your patience. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
Anyone else?
How you doing? My name is Kyle Fairbaugh. I live at 426 Chesterfield. It's the old tenant house that used to reside on Carter Farm. So I want to bring up, whenever I moved to this area in 2019, I knew this farm was going to be developed. That was never an issue of mine. However, whenever I first met Rebecca Flora of the Remake Group, early 2021, I think it was early spring, I was for the idea. I liked the idea. However, after participating in multiple different outreach programs they've offered, I found some inconsistencies with the stories. One being the preservation of the current farmhouse. In the site plan that was submitted in March 10th, 2022, it still entertains the farmhouse being there. Last year, on a community outreach program in one of our next door neighbors' backyard, Rebecca Flora has stated this house cannot go through for one more winter. That winter has come and gone. Earlier this year, I don't know if anyone's ever been out back, you can see it from my backyard, the houses, or the windows on the back of the house have been broken out. The vultures have moved from the roof into the house. We're getting ready to go into a second winter. I don't see how this house can be preserved. Also, a year ago today on QAC-TV, with a conversation with Fred, Rebecca Flora had also stated that preserving this house will require investors and it's too much for them to take on. So what I ask this council is to reevaluate
the plan that's being put in front of you, and also consider the, you know, the mismatching stories that have been presented. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, and congrats to the new council members. Some of you have heard me raise these points before. I'm Bob McGrory. I live on Chesterfield Avenue at 311. And I'll keep my comments succinct. They're part of the addendum to a joint letter that was sent as well. But basically, no strip mall for Chesterfield Avenue. Adding 11,250 square feet of new commercial space on Chesterfield makes no sense for the town council or the town of Centreville. There are commercial building vacancies, and this is a partial list. Commerce Street, Pennsylvania Avenue, Turpin's Lane, Water Street, Courseval, Centerville Road, vacancies in the Acme Shopping Center, excuse me, and the Food Lion Shopping Center. So for those taxpayers who have paid taxes some 20 and 30 years on those parcels, why would the town give a currently non-commercial property commercial zoning to build 11,000 square feet of commercial space to compete with those existing commercial properties? So I'll just read as much of this as I have time for. The proposed commercial structures are not only inconsistent with the town's award-winning community plan and the surrounding residential zoning, but also completely excessive for the needs of the PUD proposed for that site. Docks Riverside Grill is the only commercial property on Chesterfield Avenue, set well back from the road, and is a long-standing and grandfathered restaurant use and an outstanding asset to the region. However, the excessive commercial square footage proposed by the Carter Farm is too close to Chesterfield, inadequately buffered, and directly competes with the town's existing inventory of commercially zoned properties and structures. There's no rationale for the town council to allow this excessive new commercial inventory, adding to the existing commercial vacancies and competing with longtime commercial property owners and taxpayers, since it conflicts with the vision outlined in the community plan for the Carter Farm and the surrounding residential zone. Other than that main issue, I don't oppose the development of the Carter Farm, which is right across the street from my house, but I would like it to be sensitive to the community and without that commercial space. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Is there a motion to adjourn? So we opened this hearing 2 weeks ago and kept it open. Is there a motion to adjourn this hearing?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The public hearing on 9-2022 is so adjourned. We will now move into old business. I'm going to hand it over to Councilmember Johnson for conversation about community concerns regarding Carter Farm. I understand there is a PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Almost.
I didn't have time to set it up ahead of time, so we got to turn this TV on.
Copy. So I can
Folks, good to see you.
filibuster while we're getting set up. In all seriousness, folks out in the community in the room know that I have been a proponent of this project for some time. Like any project, that's not to say that I have ever felt 100% of what has been planned is something that I would necessarily do or agree with. So I've always been sensitive to the concerns that have been raised. When I did take the opportunity to meet at Fred's and Fern's house view, as he indicated, had that opportunity to meet with approximately 12 folks and was overwhelmed by the amount of concern. But in particular, those points that were raised, that there were questions that community members felt that had been asked either publicly or privately to a developer at a charrette, wherever that might have been, that venue, that the information had not been forthcoming. So my commitment, of course, was, well, to me, this is easy. You know, the outcome may not be easy for folks, but the process itself of just saying, let me listen, let me take down the questions, of which there were approximately 30 that evening. And then when I've looked back at what admittedly has been a voluminous amount of letters, emails, text messages, you name it, folks weighing in with opposition, tried to make sure that in some semblance we have captured all of those questions. So if there's any lingering out there after this evening's slides, I am not going to read every single question. What I would like to do, and I ask for unanimous consent from this council to do so, is to just kind of quickly go through these slides, maybe linger for 30 seconds or so folks in the room and at home can kind of gather what's there. I'll comment on them. But what I'd like to propose just on the outset would be go through these. You'll see a summary at the beginning. You'll see some recommendations at the end. And then what I'd like to do is invite the developers to continue answering these questions. They have already done a pretty good job responding to what they've seen thus far. But give them until the next meeting to have fully answered everything and then present those answers at the next meeting. So we're not presenting answers tonight, though admittedly, yes, some good stuff has come in, but I want to be able to post on our town website, post at our next meeting, information on what has come back as a result of these questions and concerns. So I think we're close. Thank you very much. Very grateful for QAC-TV's support in the room. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So in full disclosure, there are many folks that said, I would not go into the community and do these neighbor-to-neighbor sessions. You're subjecting yourself to some punishment. And I will say, while it was hard to hear some of the concerns, it's part of the process. When we get elected, we know that we want to listen. So I'm going to go back. Okay, so here's the overview. This is kind of if I was to have a bottom line up front, this would be it. The overarching concerns right now are really as to the project's stated unknowns. So there's been questions that have been asked, well, what is the business plan for the farm? Well, we don't have that yet. May have been the answer up to this point. Increasing concern as to the project's viability and sustainability. And I think that's got to be on everybody's mind. It's on mine when I try to balance my checkbook in my house, and I know the prices that have gone up. So when we think about the pandemic, rising interest rates, inflation, construction costs are double, triple, quadruple in some cases. So does the business plan that this developer has put together still make sense? I think that's a good question. Perception that you can get much more for less money elsewhere. So folks have talked to developers in other parts of the Eastern Shore, and when you put a price tag on what they're thinking for Carter Farm and what you can get elsewhere, there's a delta. So why would somebody pick Carter Farm in Centreville? Requests for crime, education, environment impact studies. That was resounding in a lot of the questions, the emails. A lack of detail in the proposed clubhouse. Parcel 3C, which is the multifamily units, and Parcel 4, the commercial, are not addressed in the HOA. And a lot of detail folks would like to see on what is the multifamily. Concern for the remaining Carter Farm home, that's come up tonight, the upkeep, the preservation. I mentioned that to the developers. You drive down Chesterfield Avenue and the fences are falling apart. And we can do better, and we should do better for here in Centreville. So without further ado, like I said, there's, and as Fred indicated, 36 questions, not all inclusive. So what I want to invite the community to do is to continue to submit questions. I'll gladly update this list. So you see the first 5 there. And again, I'm just asking folks to sort of digest this tonight with the understanding that we're going to get the developer to take a stab at these, and they have started to answer those. Some of this, as you see on question 4, the numbers. How were the tax numbers and the tax base determined? One question that I think is worth answering tonight is the town subsidizing the project for the first couple of years until there's a positive revenue? The answer that we've gotten already is no, that's not the case. And of course, I think what would be great for us as a council is to ask our staff to take a look at the answers that come back, and if we feel, from a staffing, a public works standpoint, well, I don't know that that's true, to have a sort of counterpoint when appropriate. 6 through 10. First question there, number 6, of course, is what has been a concern among many, if not all of us on the council. How do we continue to support a project that is looking to take a significant portion, majority of the capacity we have left, when we do not have fidelity on a new replacement, expanded, in particular, facility? And we're still hoping to get that, of course. Number 7, as our town clerk, Carolyn Brinkley, has indicated, and as was requested in a recent meeting, we did ask for the traffic study and its full version to be put on the website. So that has been done, and if there's additional information, obviously, that the developers can provide, we would appreciate that. Next several questions about impact studies. I mentioned those in the summary. First question there on number 11 is, of course, what we've already talked about, these these dynamics that absolutely are going to affect anybody's bottom line, anybody's business plan. Can the community see the full marketability? Question that was really a big chunk of our discussion was about why is a 5-acre farm preferable to a community garden, things that some of us have seen in other communities.
Breezing through.
16 through 19 there. And that last question you see is a very specific case study on if it's this much a square foot, this is what it costs elsewhere for this amount of, or this at an interest rate, excuse me, of 7% or more. How does this make sense? 20 through 22. And then the last one there, of course, a little bit more detail and some history on the growth allocation, the capacity for the wastewater treatment facility. And then the sentiment that you see in 24, that there has been discussion with the developer representatives that, you know, well, this is what we hope to do, or this is what we think we'll be able to do. Folks would like more confidence than that. Specific plans for the restaurant. And then there's an excerpt that says there's no limitation on commercial, so what would be those limitations? 27 through 31. There's a concern that there are traffic numbers that are represented in the current traffic study that reference a traffic study from 2015 that are not the actual numbers. So that's something we would like to invite the developer to take a hard look at. And then finally, 32 through 36. And this is something I'm curious myself. A lot of the examples that the developers pointed to have been in other communities that are not really like Centreville, not really like Queen Anne's County. So why was Centreville chosen? You know, are there really agri-hood projects that have a more closely aligned sort of culture, geography, et cetera, for where we are that just we could point to say that's kind of what we're thinking of? That's what it'll look like. And then I just thought this was an interesting catch. There's places on the plans in question 36 that look like they are covered parking areas. And so are these for golf carts? There's a number of those. So some very good questions, I think. And I don't want to speak on behalf of the developer. I would just ask very quickly, since Rob is in the room, can you at least state on behalf of the developer this evening that none of these questions that have been asked, is there going to be a problem answering? Would you be able to at least say that?
Yeah, no, we've already developed a draft for all of them.
Thank you. So next steps, I'd like to have these questions published on the town website, the same location as the traffic study, and just hats off to our town staff for having a project section, I am getting that right, for the main page so that you can look at current activities on the part of the town, this being one of those projects. Continue to solicit answers from the developers and then publish those answers, additional information at the next meeting and on the town website. One thing that I have not heard, and this will just be my last point and I will defer back, no one has really come to me, and not have I read anywhere in traffic that folks do not want any development, anything to happen on that farm. If that's you and you're out there, come to me, because I don't want to misstate that. So what that tells me is there may be dissatisfaction and significant concern in spite of these questions being answered. But I would like to invite the community to hear the answers, digest that, and if the community still has a resounding, gosh, this just doesn't feel right, you know, my vote's affected. And I've said that to the developer, that's how strongly I feel about listening to the community. So without further ado, I'll hand back. Thank you.
Council, any other questions, comments, concerns at this time? I'll just clarify for the sake of clarification that we have to address Ordinance 9-2022 60 days after it's tabled, at least 60 days after it's tabled. It was tabled last week unanimously by this council. So the clock is ticking for us to either move that ordinance up or down, or table it to some further time, a specific time if we're seeking more clarity on wastewater or some of these other questions to be answered. We can do that tonight. We can do it 60 days less 2 weeks, because 2 weeks has gone by from now, but we do have to deal with that. We can't leave it on the table for forever. And, yeah. Anything else on Carter Farm? Now, I guess I'll say that the obvious question to me, right, is does the council has to decide, with the input of the community, if anything is going to get developed at Carter Farm. My opinion, like so many others, and has consistently been, we don't have the wastewater. We should probably stop this for the time being now and not stop having these conversations until the wastewater picture has become more clear. My question is, does the council, I mean, this is listed as infill development in a decade-old comprehensive plan, an award-winning comprehensive plan for the town. It is included as infill development in the comprehensive plan that's going to be before the council. If we don't want anything, I don't know if the problem is with this developer, with this concept, but if we don't want anything to go down there, then we have to make that decision. And I say we, I mean the royal we, not just the five of us. There are a lot of hurdles being erected to the project. Wastewater, 36 questions that the developer has stated have answers. So the question is, when we clear all those hurdles, when the wastewater picture clarifies, when the developer has the chance to answer these questions, does anything meaningfully change about whether or not this place is going to get developed? And don't we owe it to be honest brokers to people to say, we don't support anything happening down there, or we do? Because we've been talking about this up here for a very long time. And I just feel like we are in this, I'm a no on the growth allocation, so long as wastewater stays the way it is now. I think the question is, if we don't want this town to grow, if we don't want any new houses, then why invest in a wastewater plant? The council has not had these conversations, 2 brand new council members. We've not had these, but I'm just not sure. Nobody wants this stuff in their backyard, right? Nobody wants. I think if you went to other developments and said, we're going to develop right behind your place, the same concerns would come up. So are we not going to put it anywhere? Do we not want to develop anywhere? If so, let's revisit this wastewater plant. Because the wastewater plant, when it's built, some of these things are going to be by right. Turpin Farm is going to be by right. When they come forward, that's going to be, if they check the boxes for the zoning and that farm, that's going to move forward. It's not going to come up here. If we have the allocations, the sewer allocations. So I think we have a lot of things to think long and hard about. Carter Farm certainly, but growth in general. What do we want to do here? I'm a no on the growth allocation as of right now.
Yeah, I feel the same way. For me, it's truly just until we have more clarity on the wastewater treatment. I am disinclined to continue to have this conversation every couple weeks until we have that clarity. And so, my preference would be to table this to April when session will be over and we'll have maybe some sort of idea if the state's going to invest in our wastewater treatment plant. Because until then, we're just going to keep talking in circles without any resolution.
The conditional approval of the PUD expires in April. So
I know
that clock also would start again.
But do you know the exact date of, because the session ends, I think, April 10th. So.
And we would know before then.
Yeah,
we'd have an indication
Budget passes
anyway.
in March.
Right.
I don't want to speak for anybody that has not yet spoken, but my suspicion is 100% of us, and we could vote if we need to show that, but 100% of us up here have tremendous discomfort with this project or any that would potentially maximize the remaining capacity that we have, not having any fidelity on numbers, any funding that we're going to get potentially from the feds, et cetera, for a new, and we all know we need new anyway, so we may just get that, and then we're still in a position where additional projects are going to come into question. So that's just my suspicion, correct me. So knowing that, our choice is either to vote now and we know we're all going to say no, and then is there an option for this developer to come forward again? Do we table it?
Not for a year, right?
Not for a year.
Substantially similar, if the provision is substantially similar, who gets to make that call?
I'm not sure that
Come up here.
Thank you, Sharon. It'd be good to know the procedure.
I'll have to look. I'm not sure if the growth allocation has a 1 year. There are certainly things in the zoning, other zoning provisions, probably the PUD, that does have a 1 year, but I don't know that the growth allocation has that.
Okay,
I will have to double check.
okay. But we do have to deal with it within 60 days, and that can include tabling to another specific date.
Yes.
Can the approval of the PUD be extended at a later time?
Well, it's conditional.
Conditional?
There may be provision to extend it. I'm not sure. I'll have to look at that as
All
well.
right, see, because the two appear to be working in parallel, so.
Are we taking action tonight on this? There is no action on the agenda. We do have a tabled ordinance, so we could pull it from the table anytime, but I'll leave that to you all.
I think we owe it to everyone to hear answers to those 36 questions. Otherwise, it appears we're acting in a vacuum.
All right. I'll just say for the record that I'm enthusiastic about the plan for the neighborhood. The commercial gives me a little bit of pause, but the agri-hood, and I think we all agree that certain neighborhoods in Centreville are, maybe we wouldn't do it that way again. I'm not going to say they're bad developments or good developments, but we wouldn't develop Centreville Heights the way we did 50 years ago. We wouldn't develop Northbrook the way we did 20 years ago. I think we have to be willing, when people try to do different things and bring in new components, to let them be experimental. I think we have to give them a little bit of ability to say, I might not want to live there. Right? Nobody in the room, I don't know, might want to live there. Some people clearly do. But that doesn't mean it's not a good idea. That doesn't mean it can't succeed. And I think we owe it to the future of the town to say, all right, the alternative is they come in and do it the way it's always been done. They know how to, I presume they know how to do that. They get rid of the 5-acre agricultural component of the CSA, and it just looks like a development. And I would not consider that an improvement from where we are now. And so I appreciate the experimental nature of it. I don't think it's that experimental. I've heard me ask questions about how does that translate to Centreville, because it's different. It is different, but I think we have to be willing to experiment and give people a fair shake to try new ideas. I'll leave it at that. Anything else on Carter Farm? We will move to information technology, which will be presented by the town manager.
Good evening, council. Asking about town IT software. I presented something at the last meeting that kind of laid out some things that we were looking at, and we are requesting council's approval to purchase software suites for IT modernization. The current software infrastructure is, to say the least, dated and inefficient. This requirement has 3 pieces: Muni-billing, it's the utility billing, this is the software end associated with the telemetry reading, and a user-friendly customer interface, an app or web-based anytime, anywhere access. The AccuFund Cloud, which moves us away from the antiquated and costly server-based technology and the requirement for cumbersome manual backups and updates that are pushed, and we have to request that push. Payroll will be moved to a digital footprint for time and attendance, and to employee access for pay and leave statements, which we now print and deliver in envelopes by hand. Then they can go and change their W-2, change their tax withholdings, things of this nature. But largely, it moves it away from the server-based into a modern technology. And then Intercom, this would give us the fully enabled Microsoft suite. We have some components of the Microsoft suite now, but not all of it is fully enabled. An exemplar that I'm particularly keen on is that we can go into Microsoft Teams, pull up a document, and have multiple people in there editing and commenting and working on it in a virtual environment by somebody bringing it up a sheet, working on it, and it's locked. Nobody else can get in and see that document. And this also comes with the setup and the maintenance. And basically, this takes us out from under the thumb of using Queen Anne's County IT. This is not budgeted at this time. However, as you are well aware, Fed has been raising interest rates. This is affecting our balance from our ICS accounts. And at a later point in time, I'm going to dive into that a little bit more. But this software purchase would come from that ICS accounts. And then moving forward, we've identified some grants that work with your IT infrastructure that we'll be looking to obtain. We would appreciate your consideration of this request.
I have a question. I've said up to this point that I'm all for this moving to the cloud. I think everything behind it. Biggest question I always have is what level of customer support do we have? Because there is a value, as you know, on even if they take forever to get there because there's other priorities, somebody being able to show up and say, here, let me take a look at that. So do you feel there's sufficient client support?
Yes.
Okay. And can you describe that just a little bit?
We've talked to Intercom. They would virtual in. You know, we could bring up, connect the laptops, so they virtual in, configure it to our footprint, if you will, and that way everything is set up to our standards. Instead of going to the county and saying, hey, I've got a new employee coming in, can you set up an email address? Bang, 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 we're in. It's done that day.
Can you help me understand this chart?
Yes.
You can start at the top.
With the writing or just the chart itself?
Well, the chart itself. I'm having a hard time making heads or tails of it.
So the annual current cost for the AccuFund is about $4,000.
Okay.
The current labor cost for Munibilling is $5,000. The current cost for AccuFund infrastructure all comes to about $22,000 a year if you get down to that.
The annual cost is some kind of subscription, some kind of...
I'm not that familiar with the subscription and what parts of that are the fees and so forth, so the licensing.
Do you want Ashley to come up? Ashley can probably.
She's more AccuFriendly.
Yeah.
Friendly.
And she pays the bills, too.
Yeah.
But somebody does.
So the current labor cost is what it would cost us, let me see, to implement, like to get everything rolling. And then the next column will be the first year's fees going forward. And then the next column would be what the recurring annual fees would be, just to have the services.
I see.
So the 72 is the first year, and then it gets a lot less in the future. Correct.
And what is this? It's 26,000 is what it's costing us now for all these, or we don't have them all now?
So currently what we're paying is the $4,000 for AccuFund server base.
Okay.
What do we pay the county for? We don't pay anything to the county, which is a benefit. However, we are always at the bottom of their list. So there's been times, like at the Wharf Building, we've had network issues because we have I know, a VPN. I was locked out of my email for like 10 days. So.
But we have a VPN connection, and there was a firewall issue that bogs down our internet speed, and we were losing phone calls because we have voice over IP. So it's just anything that we request, we are last priority for them. Gotcha. So even though we're not paying for it, like we are in a sense.
Yeah, but
in a negative.
this proposal doesn't have anything to do with the network, right? I mean, with
So
connections or firewalls or any of that, right? It's just-
Intercom, that company would be in charge of updating our network, setting up our firewall systems.
Oh, okay.
And it's still a lot cheaper than what it would be to have an IT person on staff. And also with the Microsoft Office suite, we would get security updates and all of those things. We wouldn't have to have someone set up the laptops. It would be easier to do that in-house instead of email accounts.
Okay.
So it costs more than we're paying now.
It costs more than we're paying now, but that additional cost is less than half of what it would cost to hire our own
Right,
IT
I
person.
got you, sure, okay. Yeah, right on.
Especially
And
someone
a
who
lot
knew
more
all this software. And,
Yes.
Yeah, right. It'd be hard to
And we
find
always
somebody.
get the newest and latest all the time
Right,
with the Microsoft Office, so that's cool.
Trying to get that from the county.
yeah.
I'm prepared to make a motion when you're, and if you're ready.
I stand by.
I could not be more enthusiastic to propose.
Please, go for it, be more.
I make a motion to approve the IT suite modernization for the amount of $72,730.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? There you are. Thank you, Ashley. End of year decisions.
Now we're at parking meters.
I'm sorry. Boy,
Don't skip my favorite topic.
I cleared a lot of stuff there. Parking meters.
I'm not discussing any of this.
Parking meters.
You're up, chief.
He was hoping I skipped it too.
Sorry.
Why don't you do your business here? Parking meters. As far as they're concerned, we are working diligently with DPW at this time. Our officers tonight, as a matter of fact, are working around the clock to empty all the meters, make sure there's no coins left in them. They're going to make sure that in the morning, I think it's scheduled with DPW to have, or at least start the removal of the existing parking meters or what was left of them. So I'm not really sure how long it's going to take that project to finish out, but I know that with the time frames that we're given, it shouldn't take that long. So we're hoping within the next week to 2 weeks, we'll have that project finished,
That's all the meters across town.
except for the electric charging meters that are on lot 5 or whatever,
Yeah,
town lot.
Great.
Yeah, as far as that goes.
Wonderful. Any problems with turnover on the 2-hour spots?
Not to my knowledge, it has been brought to my attention, and I know that the town office hasn't brought anything to me as far as any issues that have arisen, so.
The parking is a lot better than when we just bagged the meters, for sure, I think.
True.
So,
True.
nice work. Thank you.
Chief.
Any other questions about parking meters? Thank you. This sounds like a lottery game, the insured cash sweep usage.
I want Chip to stand there with a big check rather than like a spreadsheet.
So this spreadsheet is looking at, as you all know, the 2012 bond unlocked in July. And in the budget this past year, council endorsed our desire to make a bulk payment from the PUT of $375,000 against that $1.46 million balance. So what we've been looking at is how do we continue to attack that debt. That payment, which we made next week, will bring our balance down on the 2012 bonds to $1,098,000. The current rate for our ICS interest is at 3.83. That's going to happen on Friday. The monies that I've asked for were from July, August, September, and part of October. We've made about $102,000 in interest over that 4 months. The projected amount for November, based on current balance and the new rate, is about $48,000. What we would like council to do is dedicate that interest, because that is not enduring. We don't know how long these interest rates will last, to attacking that first bond that's unlocked. We would propose that the next payment in May, which will be the 1st of May, which we will make our regular payment of a combined $113,000 and then the $39,000 against the second bond, that the principal hit is $123,700. Couple that with $240,000 from the increased interest, and that's a modest estimate at $40K per month, to knock down the balance on that bond in May to $736, and then repeat this process again next fall with $375 from the PUT, $240 from the interest, to bring our balance down in 1 year from $1.4 million to $121,000 roughly. We believe with the increased interest, because the projected rate by next spring is 5%, that we will be able to eliminate that bond 9 years early.
Right on.
And that money, you know, it's finite. At some point in time, rates are going to come back down. We won't be making that interest, so we can't count on it for operational costs, but we sure can attack that first bond while it's open. That would then leave us to, as the rates stay up for however long, continue to accumulate that money and accumulate the interest. Potentially, when the 2016 bond opens up, we could hit that it will unlock at $4.6 million, and we could hit it with between $2.5 and $3 million hit as soon as it unlocks. And we would be close to being able to pay that off in another year, which would then leave us with just under $4 million in debt. So within a couple of years, we could go from $14 million in debt to under $4 million, but by using our money to make money to attack this debt.
What is the current percentage debt service of our town budget every year?
We budget is around $8 million. We pay $1.5 million per year to debt.
I think this is great. It's fantastic.
Here, here.
So we can put together a formal memo for you for next council session, and then we can move forward with this.
Any other questions, comments? Centreville Police Department salary compression.
So we fixed the career ladders and adjusted the pay scales for experience and education across the board. We do have some compression within our payroll in the police department. There, historically, and I'm not talking about recent, I'm talking probably over the past 2 decades, there's been, you know, hires of an ad hoc nature and different hiring points and different pay scales. And what we would like to do is, and it's resulted in an inconsistency pay to rank and pay to experience ratios. What we'd like to do is set up that experience ladder and rectify, as we have in the other departments, and want to fix CPD. And this will also remove some of the superfluous layers of where people coming in at what rate, and just kind of compress it so that the decisions are much more streamlined. And our desire would be to use excess PUT funds to see and remove these compressions. Don't know how much that'll be. What I'm really seeking tonight is a sponsor that we can go forward, do the study, and then propose this to council.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
Now, what we've all been waiting for, the end of year decisions. There's a packet, page in your packet. Carolyn, do you want to run through these, or
Sure.
is the fun stuff for you? And
I know. I like the fun stuff. So each year the council decides on, because it is November, so we're coming up on our end of year. Typically there is a $15 Acme gift card for Thanksgiving to employees. Our Christmas breakfast, which if the council approves would be December 9th. That's about the usual time that we do it. Employee bonus of $100, and then if you want, cancellation of the December 15th. And additional items to consider, the annual appreciation dinner for our volunteers, which we did not have last year. Just a recommendation of January 21st, and then at any time between now and December, end of December, if anyone has suggestions for gifts for volunteers, I would be more than happy to accept them. So, and you can adopt these individually, or you can adopt them in their entirety.
I will move to adopt the gift card, the Christmas breakfast, the holiday bonus, and the cancellation of the December 15th, 2022 council meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The annual appreciation dinner, January 21st, 2023. It's been a minute since we've done one of these.
I continue to think they're important, and then just, I don't remember how recently, Carolyn, you have done this, but the times that the town sort of gift certificates, part of the gift card program, that sort of requires you to use it in town. I can't, if we do that, I can't think of a better time with inflation and just everything else going on, that if all these volunteers get something and it's being paid directly to a business in town that participates, just my 2 cents, I think if we're going to do it, that's the way to go.
I think we should do the dinner.
All right. Is there consensus for the dinner?
Yes.
All right. January 21st, 2023.
We used to have it the weekend before Martin, which is Martin Luther King. A lot of people go away that weekend, so, and we also try and not have it, we used to, a couple times we've had it the beginning of January. That conflicts with the, with Goodwill's, their appreciation dinner that they normally have, so we try and just stay a little further out in January.
Reports of boards and commissions, Maryland Municipal League.
Nothing new to report.
Council of Governments.
I had my first meeting this week.
All right, exciting. Look forward for that update next time. Economic Development.
So we had our second fireside chat on economic development. It was really good. We had our county planning and zoning folks come and present on the county's recently approved comprehensive plan, and just the timing of that as it intersects with our impending new plan. We also were able to present a tool that we have developed to use as a scorecard for what is really the last, I want to say, 7-8 pages of the current economic development plan. And it will allow us to perform an assessment of everything that the town charted doing as its course in economic development. And we've actually made progress. So if anybody's anxious about, oh my gosh, what's that report going to show? We have done some pretty significant things in implementing the 2015 plan. So at an upcoming meeting, we'll have the results of that assessment. That's all I have.
Park Advisory Board.
They did not meet this month, but the Parks Board is looking for council's formal approval to have the Wharf Day event be an annual convening. So I would look for consensus there that they could do the fishing derby and movie.
Yeah.
I like that.
Is there consensus for that? There is.
All right, awesome.
Planning Commission also canceled its meeting last night, so they have not met since our last meeting. Reports of department heads, town manager.
So it's been a busy couple weeks. We had talked to some farmers and we've gotten permission to test on 2 farms. In addition to looking at the testing, we've asked Sharon, she's crafting the easement to grant us access to the property and do all the things that we need to do. In addition to that, looking at what it would cost to run the infrastructure out there to see if it's still viable. But it's a move in the right direction. On the 9th, staff, parts of staff are going to attend a water reuse seminar in Edgewater, just across the bridge. There's going to be a national briefing on where this is being done nationally. EPA is going to discuss, MDE is going to discuss. We're going to hear from Howard County because that's a recent addition to the pack. Loudoun County that's doing some stuff in Virginia. Anne Arundel's efforts for managed aquifer recharge, Hampton Roads and their significant effort, and then WATEC who did the effort in Westminster, and then a risk management briefing on all this. We're looking forward to going to that. Having talked to a couple of the people in advance to kind of understand where the experts are saying about what we're doing. Jim had reached out to Anne Arundel County's Department of Public Works chief and got some data points from him. I took those and I went and talked to their MAR lead, and they've been testing for 2 years. They've got the reverse osmosis, but they're pumping it back into their system rather than subterranean discharge. they need, in my opinion, they need to get a lobbying effort and say, look, MDE is not going to do this of their own volition. There's going to have to be an impetus to get them off the dime to look at new technologies. We met with MDE, and they're like, well, what about other innovative ideas? And we're like, that's why we're meeting with you. Because, you know, hey, I'll stick a pipe in the ground and start jamming it, let's go. But they seem to want to throw up roadblocks. And it's not a matter of, it's a scientific concern, but they don't have the data that says, here's why we're concerned, here's the things that are wrong with that. Some of the stuff we've looked at, the mobility of arsenic. Okay, there are studies from New Jersey, just by disturbing rock to run pipe through, that you can mobilize the arsenic there and worry about that seeping in. So there are things we're concerned about, but there are also things on the other side, water intrusion from the bay, where you can't drill along the coast of Kent County or Kent Island a well there, you're not going to get drinking water from it because of saltwater intrusion. We've also looked at what about if we were to discharge into the creek? You know, more, if we added salinity to our discharge to say, let's make it more like bay water to get rid of the things that we're talking about, trying to get them to say, help us, tell us what it is you want from us so that we can move forward. So we're going to meet with these folks on the 9th, try and get an understanding of what's the best thing to do, what's the best way to move forward. And they've brought up some things that, you know, folks that were in the meeting from MDE's other departments hadn't heard. For instance, our first thought was we were going to have to go below non-permeable rock, way down about 2,000 feet, and then not have to worry about it percolating back up. They brought up, what about a superficial aquifer and not going down that deep, because they would prefer not to disturb too much. And we're like, okay, first heard. MDE was surprised, you know, other departments within MDE were surprised that the subterranean folks brought this up. It's like, we didn't think that was an option. So we're going to talk with them, the surface discharge, more to follow, but two of the big 8 counties, as they're called here, are now looking at this. So there is a momentum that this is going to have to take off. We don't have the money to do all the studies. That's just the reality. But we would like to leverage what's already been done and say, you know, here's where the state needs to be. So as you all know, our delegation has visited our plant, so they're aware of our plant's decay. There's a potential meeting next Thursday with David Brinkley, the Secretary for Budget and Management. You know, of the folks that are meeting with him that day, I'm the only in person. Other stuff's just going to be briefed to him. So hoping to get more details on that exact time. Trash removal. You all know that our trash removal is subpar. I did see an MES truck go through town the other day, so I reached out to them and said, hey, you're already running our plant. Can you help us out anywhere else? They don't do your normal trash removal, but they would entertain the idea of doing our recycling. So we're going to see where we can get with our current contract. I am not optimistic about improving that. I think there could be a rebid. If somebody like Waste Management were to come in that's a little more reputable and thorough, let's put it that way. In the past, we've been told they're too expensive. And my question is, did we negotiate? Did we say, hey, here's what we can do. This is what others are offering. Do you want this contract? You know, we're willing to go to this and see if that would fix our problems. But right now, we're just not getting the bang for our buck, as you all are well aware. And I figure if it does cost a little bit more, okay, town hall's phone's going to ring, but they're already ringing because people don't like the service. So it's Mock's next to me, but we'll see where that's going. And then lastly, we had a really interesting meeting, PSD Citywide TGT Solutions, on asset management software. And we're waiting to get a quote from them. This is the stuff that looks at your life projections for your roadways, all of your capital projects, looks at your risk models, looks at replacement costs, conditions of assets, and a strategy to manage those assets across time from now out 20 years. Some of these things we're already looking at and trying to build our own models, but what I liked about this was the cross correlation. If you start getting breaks in certain areas, it changes your model to say, okay, we're going to move this up in your priority, and lets us kind of make the decisions based on data More importantly is it moves the institutional knowledge from Kip's head to a disk, to a hard drive. Because if something happens to him, to me, to anybody that has all these plans within them, anybody coming in can say, okay, here's where we are. This is what the next 25 years looks like. We capture all that. So once we get the quote, I'll come back to you if it's in the ballpark. I'll come back to you. If it's not, then it's done. But it was pretty fascinating. It was one of the better demos I've seen of all the software we've looked at. And we looked at Utilize and some others that look at everything we have in the town, from our streets to our tires, as an asset. And what's the life expectancy of that asset? And when do we have to move before it becomes more costly to repair than to maintain? And how do we get out of the holes that we've got right now? Because if you've seen my whiteboard, it's quite a list.
Chip, can I assume you can project manage from within
Yep.
that tool?
Yep. So that's
awesome.
We had Janelle look at it as project managers, trained project manager. She fell in love with it. And when I started seeing all the cross correlations and how we could manipulate this data and capture how to best execute against our budget, against our priorities, it really was pretty impressive. And like I said, the big part to me is that now it's captured and somebody can look out beyond, we can program out. We already know in 10 years when the plant's done and we're 5 years down the road and upgrade software, we're gonna have to start talking about the next edition, if there is one. It might be the injection well is the next 50-year solution. It might be we're talking about another field. I don't know, but I think this is important to kind of capture all that data so that when you guys are gone, when I'm gone, when whoever's in this room is gone, that institutional knowledge of the town and its infrastructure is there.
What's the software called again?
It's PSD Citywide.
PSD
Citywide. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could use that at work. We got a lot of stuff that we don't know anything about.
I'll expect your
Seven
vote.
priorities and whatever, yeah, so, no.
You gotta get some kind of royalty, Chip.
He's an influencer.
All 7 followers.
Yes.
Yeah. And that is all I have for this evening.
Chief?
All right. The month of October has been pretty busy for our town and its police department. I wrote down a few key points in reference to some of the events that we had taken place through the month of October. One of the main events was Centreville Day of 2022. Went off without a hitch from everything that I know. It was one of the largest events for Centreville Day that I've seen in the history of me being here in 14 years. So I was very pleased to see that the Centreville Police Department was ecstatic to be a part of that. We had our display out along with multiple other people in the town, and I just can't say enough good about the feedback we got from the community with everything that happened that day. Some of the other events that we had helped participate in, obviously our first Friday in Farmers Market, as usual, we helped with the parking and trying to clear out the streets for both of those events, and again, they went off without a hitch. Just recently, we reduced our canine assignments from 2 to 1. So we just sold K9 Eck, which was assigned to Lieutenant Larimore. We sold him to Fruitland PD, and as of yesterday, we got a wonderful report from Fruitland saying that he's really acclimated to his new handler over there. So he's doing well, his health is doing well, and apparently he's doing well with the report. One of the things that was a concern is with reducing the K9 from 2 K9s to 1 is coverage for the town. It's not something that we're going to do away with per se. It's something we just will revisit later on down the road. Maybe within the next fiscal year, we'll look at another K9 to add to the program, but right now it's just not feasible for us. We already discussed parking meters.
Why is it not feasible, Chief?
Well, right now we don't have the staffing for it. Okay. And ultimately, to take that type of canine, which is a patrol dog, it's a dual-purpose dog. It's a patrol dog and a narcotics dog. So you have to have a specific type of person to handle that dog, and we don't have that person in our agency right now. So for the dog to just sit and wait for that to happen, it's not fair to the dog. And we did have Fruitland PD step up. They had a handler readily available. They had everything set up, and they were planning on purchasing the dog anyway. It just happened to be that the timing worked out for us. So that like I said, maybe 2023, 2024, we'll revisit that. We'll look at it, see if we can get another dog for the Centreville Police Department when we get our staffing right and get the people in place for that.
Okay. Thanks.
So, like I said, ultimately, we touched on the parking meters. They're going to be empty tonight, and hopefully the removal will start by Friday, is what I've been told. So I'm not sure that that'll take a real long time, maybe within the next week or two. One of the things I've been working with is the Red speed camera company. We're looking at placing the one speed camera back on Watson Road. I think it's already been allocated to be placed there. They assured me it should be within the next month is the time frame which they told me. Also, they did assure me that they are still continuously doing traffic studies throughout town to look at hot spots and other places that they can place the speed cameras down the road.
Is Watson Road close enough to a school? Is what?
It falls right within 1,000 feet from the school zone.
Okay.
Ultimately, the police department has, since the last several years, have been dealing with staffing issues. We've never been up to full staff for quite some time. And I'm happy to report that as of just recently, I'm looking at maybe projected date of January 1st, going to be very close to full staff for the first time in a long time. We just recently received 3 applications from females in the area. Out of those 3 females, 2 of them were certified officers that we are currently working on their backgrounds to get them hired with the Centreville Police Department. We also had 2 male officers that just recently applied from other agencies that we are diligently working on them as well. So I'm hoping to be up to full staff by January 1st or thereabouts. So ultimately, that's all I have for the council, unless you have any questions for me.
Is being up to full staff, does that allow somebody, an officer, to be at Centreville Elementary on Chesterfield to help?
It will definitely give us the opportunity to have an officer there more frequently than maybe we do now. So ultimately, at this point in time with our staffing, we have maybe 2 officers allocated for a day shift. So we try to put them at both schools, the elementary schools, as best we can without, obviously getting calls for service or anything else that may draw them away from that position. We've also had many speed complaints throughout town, which we also have to address, which are occurring around those times when the schools are dropping off kids. So we've been trying to position officers between the schools, between the speed complaints. I mean, we've been juggling it, so.
Yeah, I've heard anecdotally at least about some pretty aggressive situations at Centreville Elementary, where teachers have felt like, when they're out there calling buses, it's not a safe environment. People yelling at them, people gunning it to get around them. I mean, it feels like a catastrophe waiting to happen.
I understand that, and I have addressed that issue with the school itself on quite a few occasions as to how to rectify that situation. Ultimately, it boils down to, I don't want to say it's a problem, I want to say, as we've been told, it's more of an inconvenience and a short inconvenience for about 15 minutes during that drop-off period in the afternoon. And basically, it comes down to citizens having to use patience, and they don't have it. Yep. And that's when we get the complaints and the irate, community members that are yelling at bosses, yelling at parents dropping off and so forth. So that's part of the reason why we try to have the officer there as best we can.
Sure. Yeah.
I think with the staffing coming up, as we are seeing it now, it'll give us that opportunity to keep that officer there to maybe mitigate those issues.
I think that'd be huge.
And just on that note, you may have seen the traffic that I know I was given a copy of just before this meeting. The principal there, I guess, had expressed concerns about the young lady that they had been using as a traffic guard, excuse me. And personally, when I've seen her out there, I thought, wow, this is great. And now the principal wants to pull that person because of the very things that
yes.
our president
indicated. It's my understanding that she was a part of maybe an argument with either one of the parents or somebody that was yelling at her, that they were impatient at the time. So now the school staff don't want to put their staff out there in any kind of harm's way, is what I've been told. I don't know if it's really harm's way. As
Elementary
much as
school drop off and pick up.
Yeah.
Astounding.
It's getting real in this town.
Yeah. I mean,
Wait till they get to high school.
how long has that school been there? And how many years have we done this without any issues, and now all of a sudden it's an issue? So now we just have to figure out how to.
Society is the issue, I think.
You're right, 100%.
I do have just some feedback from Centreville Day, and I don't want to steal the thunder of Carolyn or Carol, anybody else, on the positive, wonderful things that happened. Went to a dinner last night to sort of celebrate the committee that put that together, and we went over the feedback that we received in the surveys, and there was a criticism of the police department that I just wanted to bring to your attention, and that is apparently you guys gave out whistles, and there was an overwhelming number of people that felt that that should be discontinued. And I'm thinking it's kind of like when grandparents give the loud toys to their kids, children.
It was outstanding.
So I'm kidding. I like the whistles.
I'm proud to announce we got rid of every single whistle.
Yeah, somebody actually wrote that. Like, everything was good, but have the police department not give out whistles. So do with it as you
I hear
will.
those kids for 2 or 3 blocks away.
That was your October report that you just gave, is that right?
The minimal version, yes.
Okay, because I felt like you missed a pretty important event. We did bring in a new chief in October that I think we're all very proud of, and I think that's a significant event for October.
I appreciate this, sir. Thank you very much.
Here, here. Congratulations, thank you, we're glad you're there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Ma'am.
Town Attorney. Finance Officers.
She is out tonight. She had one update, and it was at the ICS. Oh, never mind. Go ahead. She sent me a message that I want.
Just very quick, I just want to say I have updated signature cards, so please do not leave until you come and see me to sign the signature cards.
All right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The other thing that Karen had was the ICS, the interest rate going from 3.08 to 3.83. So,
Wonderful. Public Works Director. You never have nothing.
Believe me.
I put
There's
it on
times
my
I wish I
block.
didn't have
I'm
anything.
sure.
But if I didn't have anything to report, then I'd be out of a job. So.
Well, Chip's putting your brain on a disc, I heard, so.
That's a scary, scary thought.
Error. File not found. Sorry, kid.
Okay. Some projects we're working on, Symphony Village gateway antenna. The engineers finishing up designing the flagpole. We believe we have a design now that the antenna goes inside the pole instead of on the top of it.
Does that reduce the height?
It doesn't reduce the height, it just makes it more aesthetically pleasing because you can't see the antenna, it's inside of it. We had a problem at Well 5 water treatment plant, the one on Coursewall Drive. Yesterday morning, the well pump failed. Electrician came in, come to find out it had burnt the breaker up and the wire feeding into the breaker. It was back up and running by 2 o'clock yesterday, so there wasn't any loss of service or anything. The only thing is that when they tested the motor tested out less than par for it. So the motor's going to have to be replaced. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you how long ago it was that one was replaced. The well company is looking in to see how old it is and make a recommendation whether the pump, the wet end of it gets replaced also. But they're scheduled to come as soon as they have the pump and or motor. The motor and or pump. So it's running right now. Keep our fingers crossed. The Northbrook water plant is running. So we're kind of blessed by having 2 plants, redundancies. So, the repairs to the North Interceptor sanitary sewer lines, about 95% complete. It's down to the point of wrapping up the final restoration and everything. Everything looks very good down there. That was a major project for what we had to go through for, but it's winding up now. So preparing for the First Friday event tomorrow night. staff will be setting up the tables and stuff for you and everything. So the other thing, we're beginning already to prepare for Christmas decorating, the trees on Lawyers Road, that kind of stuff. So we're going to be pretty busy, you know, over the next several weeks trying to get things done for that. DPW staff assisted the fire company with locating a leak underneath of the firehouse. When I say underneath, it was below the concrete floor in the firehouse. So we were able to locate where the problem, broad location of where the problem is. We're going to try and help them pinpoint it, but it's to an old line that they were fine with discontinuing the use of, and got valves shut off and stuff to isolate that. My last thing, hydrant flushing program will begin November 14th. We've got an ad that'll be in the paper. It'll also have listed on the town website, and there will also be email blasts going out during this period. We always attempt to be able to notify areas of the town, whether it's an email blast or to a homeowners association, before we actually go in there to start. And that's just a normal part of the process for maintenance on our order and order distribution system. So, and with that, that's all I have for you tonight.
Thank you. Yes. Questions? Town clerk.
We are getting applications in for the parade. I am actually going to send out another reminder for those. We're not as, don't have as many as we've had in the past. So still a good number, but also the tree lighting ceremony will be Wednesday, November 30th at 6:30 at the town square. So I hope everyone stops by. And November 27th, I think Ashley reported this at the last meeting, is the town decorations for downtown. November 27th is a Sunday, I believe, at noontime at Town Hall. Everyone meets. I just wanted to bring that up. The website, we are probably about, I'm going to say maybe a week and a half out from going live with our new website. We're just waiting on I think another 1 or 2 people that need to complete the training. So we're looking forward to that. One thing I did find out on a training I did last week on it is, which I didn't know, so we can put little alerts that run across the top of our website. I'm so excited about that. So KIP's hydrant flushing will be one of the little things that we run across the top of it when we go live. So, and then I think, I'm not, actually when Chip and I talked about this today, I'm not sure if I didn't already discuss the new, along with the website, the same company, we also have what is, so our town code is going to be run by them, included on our website. It's called self-publishing software. So as we do ordinances or resolutions that affect the charter and code, they will be immediately updated in the code. So right now we codify once a year. I send the ordinances and resolutions, general code puts them on there as new laws, but they don't get implemented in our code until June, July, something like that. So our code will be updated automatically once, and it'll be a sort of an automatic approval as well. I haven't done the actual training on it, so I don't know exactly how it works, but it's kind of like you guys are approving during a meeting, and then it's almost like an email where you guys say yes, and then we go ahead and get it published up. So
Software from this century.
yes, and we actually, I haven't said this to Sharon yet, we actually create the ordinances and resolutions in the software. So again, I haven't had the training, so I don't know exactly all of the ins and outs of it. So yeah, it is pretty awesome.
I mean, it's incredible how far we needed to go technologically, but Chip, in your time here, you've made great strides in getting us, somewhere near this century, and so that's exciting.
We're doing the software fixes on the Y2K bugs.
And Kip awaits a new wastewater treatment plant so that his computer doesn't think it's 1999 or whatever it says in there.
Yeah. 1979.
We're going to name the new infrastructure, we're going to call it KIP. So we can go, KIP?
It'll speak to you, too.
Fix it yourself.
And that's all I have.
We'll move into our second citizens forum. You're welcome to come up to the microphone and share your thoughts about the world.
No thoughts about the world, but I didn't understand this process, and my neighbors and I, there's like 25 of us that wrote a letter about the Carter Farm development that I thought would be read, but I didn't ask, so it wasn't read. How does that get to you guys?
We got them.
We got it.
Okay.
We got them. Yeah, we get a lot of letters, so it would take all night to read them all into the record, but we've all got them.
I just felt bad because there was like 25 people kind of counting on it, so as long as you guys know.
Yep, once I receive them, I forward them on to the council, and, they got them.
Thanks, Wendy.
Anybody else? All right, we'll move into the council roundtable. Councilman Beecham.
Nothing to report.
Councilman Worth.
I've been speaking with Frankie Todd. He's the wastewater plant operator for the county, and to get a tour of his facility, and at the same time, I guess I said, well, there might be others on the council or staff or town manager who want to attend as well. So I'm trying to put that together. So I'll circulate an email, but I was also thinking, when I talk to the COG next week, because Queenstown is probably the only other town that has a significant wastewater system. I mean, the other ones have lagoon systems, which is vastly different than what we do, but they do a stream discharge as well. It might be worth seeing what they're doing, considering your plant is probably the newest one in the county. So anyway, I'll circulate some emails about that and try to set up a tour if anyone's interested.
Awesome.
Councilperson Johnson.
I'm going to defer to our Vice President Kaiser on what we are or are not doing for First Friday tomorrow. But if you have not voted yet, please vote. Just a friendly reminder about that. That's all I have.
Yeah, so there is, can I just go?
By all means.
There is no First Friday tomorrow because I am incredibly bad at predicting the weather. Last year, the first Friday in November, it was like 38 degrees and we all froze to death, and now it's going to be in the 70s tomorrow, but we had no way to know. So there is no First Friday. Our intention ongoing is to have this season sort of be April through October. Those are when we can reasonably believe it might be warm. But climate change, who knows? Other couple things I have. One, do we have an updated code enforcement spreadsheet?
No, I did not.
Okay.
I did ask the question about,
Yes.
here's some ones we got to follow up, some Bob's following up on that.
Yeah, and just still, some of them didn't say what the violation was.
Roger, okay.
And then the other thing, and I brought this up to town manager and Carolyn also yesterday, I think, Domino's new ad campaign about pizza boxes being recyclable, even if they're filthy. Now, our trash pickup people say no, right?
So I'm glad you brought that up. When I spoke with MES today, I said, hey, I got a question for you. What's root truth? And he said, we do a lot of pizza boxes, and we have not had our shipments turned away for pizza boxes.
But our current contractor says they are.
Our
correct?
current contractor says they are.
So if Domino's.
But when they dump the recycling in with the rest of the trash, does that matter?
But here, back to the pizza box issue for a second. If you put in our zip code on Domino's is my pizza box recyclable website, it says yes, you can recycle it in 21617.
We'll give it back to Domino's.
But our trash contractor will say a whole truck is contaminated and just start throwing trash in there if there's one pizza box. So, in the town of Centreville, Recycle your pizza boxes independent of your recycling pickup, at least for the time being. That's it. That's all I got.
I'm wondering if there is council consensus on a letter to GTI, Green Thumb Industries, to encourage them to, as they update operations, expand operations, whatever the case may be, to look into, explore, consider implementing odor control technology for their plant. I think it's pretty clearly protected both in our zoning ordinance for that property, that they can make as much smell as they want to make under their agricultural provisions. It's certainly protected under the county's ag right to farm provisions. I'm just coming at this from kind of a good neighbor. I know people are concerned about it. Can we have a light touch and encourage GTI to look into this, and maybe even have them come in and talk to us about what's out there, because I'm sure there must be something, and maybe even answering our questions about how much of the smell is coming from the annual harvest of the outdoor grow area, how much of it is from processing and exhaust coming out of the building. I know there's a tour maybe coming together.
Yes.
Perhaps we can get those questions, but I think it makes sense for council to send them a letter. Again, we're happy they're here. I don't think it should be hostile at all, but encouraging them to take these steps.
I agree, and if the tone of that is, is this something on which we can work together? This is an industry that you guys are in. You have other communities that have no doubt raised concern. How have you handled that? What's the technology? And I think it's just worth stressing to this council, Dan, you may want to add, I know has some opinions on this, some folks that have approached us, that kind of a more specific concern right now is, okay, they have 5 more acres to develop, so are we faced with a situation that could be 5 times worse? And I don't know the answer to that, and I'm sure they do, or have some feel for that. So I like the idea.
Can I ask our town attorney something about this? Is what they're growing by any stretch of the imagination considered more of a manufacturing process than agriculture? It's not like the wheat crops or soybean crops or any of that. I just wonder where that definition gets blurred.
So for zoning purposes, we defined it as agriculture when the council amended the zoning ordinance to do that. I suspect various ordinances could treat it differently, but that is how it is defined in the Centreville zoning ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
And that zoning is down to the building, or it encompasses the whole PBD?
The whole PBD. So any other lots would be permitted as well.
They may want to buy more lots over there, depending on how the vote goes next week.
So I know there's odor language associated with the processing. I mean, if it's coming from the processing of the plants, is there something to be said about that? To Jim's question, I think.
Yeah, so, right. So the growing part is what I was referring to before. If there are standards related to the processing and the odor, then they would have to meet those standards.
The answer we were given last year was it was related to the growing, and that's why it is somewhat isolated in time. But I think it's a good idea to have them in here. And again, not hostile at all. I mean, they're a large employer here.
Are you suggesting we take a mellow approach?
I'm not personally offended by the odor, so I just think, it would be interesting to know, what the source of it is. And I do think, it does seem to me, living very close to it, that it is very isolated in time.
Let's try to get them in here. What do you think?
Easily done.
Did we, and I apologize if this was confirmed already, I know you were triangulating around a date and time. Do we have something set now for that?
So I'm glad you asked that, because I was going to have Ashley and Dan go to the first tour on the 10th. So they were the first 2 in. Could 3 council members go on? Okay, just double check, So Yeah, I haven't done a tour yet, so I think the 11th.
You
maybe
and I can
we
go, that works.
Yeah, and we've reached out to Utz and Snyder's of Hanover to see if they want to put up a plan.
Paper bill, let's get a paper bill.
Oh, God.
No, oh, I was thinking about the
All the
budget.
terrible smells.
Looking forward to sparking that conversation. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.